Janesville's Paul Ryan spent nearly 3 months in the national and even the world spotlight as the vice presidential nominee of the Republican Party.
After last week's election, Ryan went back home, and today, in his first post-election interview, he reflected on that experience with our political reporter, Jessica. Hello, Jess.
Well, hi there. Ryan, of course, did win re-election in his first congressional district last week, but the presidential campaign obviously made a deep impression on him. We sat down with him in this stark conference room in his congressional re-election office in downtown Janesville, and I asked him how he felt last Tuesday night as the realization that he and Mitt Romney were not going to win their national bids.
We were surprised with the outcome. We knew this was going to be a close race. We thought we had a very good chance of winning it. I think the surprise was some of the turnout. Some of the turnout, especially in urban areas, which definitely gave President Obama the big margin to win this race. There's always an electoral college strategy in winning these things, and you know what states you need to win to get to 270 electoral votes. And when we watched look at the map here, Virginia and Ohio coming in, and those ones coming in as tight as they were, and then looking like we were going to lose them, that was when it became pretty clear to us that we weren't going to win.
What about the turnout specifically in Wisconsin? They had picked you, they talked about winning Wisconsin.
Well, we always knew Wisconsin was an uphill fight because Wisconsin hasn't gone Republican since the Reagan '84 landslide. Mitt didn't pick me for Wisconsin for a certain state. He picked me for issues, for governing, for taking on the debt crisis. We had hoped to win Wisconsin. We fought very hard here for Wisconsin. We cut President Obama's lead in half, but nevertheless it wasn't enough. And what it became clear to us as things went on, when Virginia and Ohio weren't really coming together, that it looked to me sometime early in the evening that it just wasn't going to happen.
And what did that feel like for you? Well,
it was very disappointing. You can't say you struggled for about 3 months to get this ticket going. We had good days, we had bad days. It was a great experience. I'm very fortunate to have had this experience, but losing never feels good. And so you take a look back at it. I think we ran a great campaign. We made a big campaign about big ideas. We gave the country a very clear choice. I respect the fact that the process is done, that the president won the race, and I congratulate him on the race. We now have divided government like we did before. The divided government we had in the last 2 years didn't work. We're going to have to make this divided government work.
You said this was a referendum, or this was on issues. They picked you for issues. Was this a referendum on your budget plan?
Well, I don't think we lost it on those budget issues. I think people, especially on Medicare, we clearly didn't lose it on those issues. I think what people want us to do is to tackle these country's problems. And what I got out of this is they don't want only Republican ideas or only Democratic ideas. They want us to come together for common ground and to work this out. You've heard me talk about the advice my dad has always given me. He's always said you're either part of the problem or part of the solution. I feel it's my job to be part of the solution. I got reelected to the House of Representatives for Wisconsin. I'm still the chairman of the House Budget Committee. What that tells me is we're going to have to find a way of finding common ground to prevent this fiscal cliff from happening, to prevent a debt crisis from taking down this country and its economy. And so we're going to have to find a way to make divided government work.
There's some pretty hard lines drawn in the sand, though, on the tax issue already on that fiscal cliff. Is there common ground available?
I'd like to think so. Now, it would be great to see the president offer some ideas. As you know, the House Republicans, we've offered budget after budget. We've offered specific plans to prevent the fiscal cliff. We haven't seen any leadership from the president on that yet. So I think because the president got reelected, I think it's in his interest to offer some ideas, to put some specific plans on the table. Now that we have divided government, we're going to have to find a way to make it work. And what we want to focus on is economic growth. We want to make sure that we don't do things that will jeopardize growing the economy and getting people back to work. This is why we don't think we should raise tax rates, but you can get higher revenues through tax reform. So there is an area where I think common ground can be reached. But if the goal here is to keep raising tax rates, then that puts our successful small businesses, which is where most of our jobs come from, out of business. We don't want to do that. So we're going to have to find a way to make divided government work. And the focus here is to prevent this fiscal cliff from hurting the economy and getting people back to work.
So what does the future hold for you, whether it be in this discussion over the fiscal cliff and the leadership in the House, or even there's, of course, the talk of 2016.
Oh,
do you run in 2016?
We just finished a presidential election. I think everybody's tired of talking about presidential politics. I am. So right now, I look at what I've just been reelected to do, to represent Wisconsin, to be the chairman of the Budget Committee, to deal with these budget and fiscal and economic issues. I'm going to throw myself back to that work because it's work that needs to get done. And now that we have divided government like we did before, we're going to have to make this time, we're going to have to make it work. And so that's why we need to start talking with our colleagues to find common ground.
Now, Ryan will go immediately back to Washington tomorrow and return to his role in Congress. Votes on the floor of the House are scheduled to start at 6 p.m. tomorrow night, and negotiations, of course, on the fiscal cliff are expected to heat up quite quickly. But just chatting with him about his experiences out on the campaign trail, he actually showed us he has calluses on his fingers and his hands. Not kidding, like in his silver dollar size calluses from shaking hands all day long. Said like 20 times a day you have to hand sanitize. And it, you know, like there's all kinds of things you sort of learn on the campaign trail, but he certainly seems to think it was a positive experience.
Holding those microphones for hours and hours speaking, that probably didn't help either.
Right, true.
All right,
Yeah.
well, back to Washington and back to work.
That's right.
All right, thanks,
Thanks,
Jess.
Jess.
You're welcome.